charge. Hey, yo, Buffalo, you're gonna love this one. Nah, I lived in a lab making this joint. Hours turned to days until it was perfect. Bill's Mafia in the house. It's the Queen City anthem, built on grit and grind. Buffalo style, yeah, one of a kind. Snow falling heavy, but the fire burns bright under them stadium lights. The Mafia ignites, we hold it down, loyal through the pain. Every snap, every hit, it's the charge we sustain. From the fans to the field, it's more than a game. It's a family, a legacy, remember the name.
Charge up the field, let the crowd take flight. Buffalo's heart, shining so bright. Feel the energy under stadium lights. Bill's Mafia strong, it's the charge tonight.
Yeah, we hold it down. In the 716, let's go. From the tailgates lit to the thunderous sound, you can feel the passion when the Bills come around. It's a blue-collar love, built tough and true. From the heart of the city to the red, white, and blue, we bring that heat, even in the cold. With every drive, another story unfolds. It's Buffalo pride, yeah, the Mafia way. Under them lights, we making plays. You feel that? That's Buffalo pride. Every fan, every play, this city rides. We built this together, we'll never fall. Bills Mafia forever, we answer the call. Through the highs and lows, we stay in the fight. Buffalo strong, yeah, the future is bright.
Charge up the field, let the crowd take flight. Buffalo's heart, shining so bright. Feel the energy under stadium lights. Bill's Mafia strong, it's the charge tonight.
Yeah, we hold it down. In the 716, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. From the tailgates lit to the thunderous sound, you can feel the passion when the Bills come around. It's a blue-collar love, built tough and true. From the heart of the city to the red, white, and blue, we bring that heat, even in the cold. With every drive, another story unfolds. It's Buffalo pride, yeah, the Mafia way. Under them lights, we making plays. You feel that? That's Buffalo pride. Every fan, every play, this city rides. We built this together, we'll never fall. Bills Mafia forever, we answer the call. Through the highs and lows, we stay in the fight. Buffalo strong, yeah, the future is bright.
Charge up the field, let the crowd take flight. Buffalo's heart, shining so bright. Feel the energy under stadium lights. Bills Mafia strong, it's the charge tonight.
Mike, bringing it straight from Western New York to the world. This is Charge with Thomas and Sterling. Bills Mafia, stand tall and proud. We got this.
Yo, what is up, Bills Mafia? It's a new podcast in town. This is a Charge podcast on the Buffalo Media Network. Now, it's me and TD. We're familiar faces, but guess what? We've joined forces like Captain Planet in this thing, and we're here to give you some Bills talk now and forever. We doing the damn thing. TD, how you doing, man?
I am doing good. I had a chiropractor appointment tonight. Got some cup therapy. Never did that before. That was certainly an experience. But I wanted to make sure I was right for the debut, right for the Bills Mafia, and right for you, because you know what? All this time, you and I have been slowly coming closer and closer together in terms of working together. We finally made it happen, and I think we're ready to deliver.
It's time to deliver, man. And you know what? We got to give a shout out to Ian in the back end, man.
That's right.
Ian's been doing a lot of work on the back end, making all this possible too. So shout out to Ian. It's a trifecta here, and we got lots to talk about. I mean, as you guys know, we got a playoff game to talk about. We got a guest on the first show, right? We got a guest coming, and we'll introduce her here in a little bit. But man, I think to tell our fans what to expect. I mean, this kind of manifested itself maybe a couple months ago. We've been talking about kind of doing this, working together, and we both have some similar experiences, so forth, in this Buffalo sports media sphere. What's your I mean, why don't you tell everybody where you come from, and your takes on
Oh
this?
my God, I zoomed in way too far. I am a delay on this right now. Guys, we are working through some technical difficulties. Dear Lord, that is very close on my face. Welcome. Uh Say that one more time, Sturls. I apologize.
Well,
They threw
okay,
everything
so
off.
obviously this is the first show, right? And I think the start of a good show is you tell the story of how it came together. Like why
Absolutely.
we're doing this and what we plan to do. I wanted to in our notes, I wanted to make sure that we did that in the first episode.
Yeah. So, I mean, here's the thing. This show itself is a derivative of something Ian and I did for literally a couple of years. We, as a passion project, I went to school for radio and TV broadcasting, and I just felt, what better than to dabble into something I've always had as a passion and get involved. And so we did that, and we kind of organically grew. We were part of Buffalo Rumblings, then we left. We did our own thing for a bit. We joined another organization, left that for greener pastures, and after taking some time and really kind of settling in and deciding what was the best course for Ian and myself, but better just for the mental psyche of both of us, that's when I reached out to Sterling because I respect what he does, his knowledge of the game, both on the field and off the field, but even more so, just his demeanor and the way he handles himself. It was very much an easy marriage into this, and so I I I saw this as an incredible opportunity to take what I believe are two of the better content creators in the game for the Buffalo Bills and maybe even beyond that, and work together to create what I think is an inviting experience with two content creators who care about the delivery of a product, but even further than that, we care about who we're talking to. We try to keep a positive outlook, and really try to drive home positivity every single day. So that's what we're doing. I know that's a long and short of it. But I know Sterling and myself very much feel the same way about what we're trying to, put out forth for you guys, and I think you're going to be very excited in the future.
Hey, see, it's good that you're a little buttoned up there. You did it, a little school. I have no experience in that realm, so we need a little yin and yang in here. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate that. But before we even start talking any football, I think it's proper for us to our thoughts and prayers go out to the victims in California. A lot of people are suffering right now. So if you guys, I know there's going to be some efforts for relief and stuff like that. I'm sure those things will be posted online, if you feel inclined to give. But what you can do that's free, thoughts and prayers, should go out to those people. So here at the Charge Podcast, man, our hearts are with you. So all right, man. With that being said, it's football time, bro. It is football
Mhm.
time. We got a guest. We got Rachel Vigil that's going to join us. I'm excited about that. I think real quick though, before we get into Bills Broncos matchup, I think it's good for us to kind of touch on the Chargers Texans and Steelers Ravens. So, I mean, let's start with the Chargers Texans here. These are two very different football teams. We're talking, Jim Harbaugh, who I love to death. He's a Michigan great. I'm a Michigan fan. For those of you who don't know, you're going to hear me talk about the Wolverines on this show sometimes. And then you got the Texans with the whole Stephon Diggs drama that we saw earlier in the season, and it's he's injured and so forth. But man, C.J. Stroud, the second year quarterback coming to another playoff run for him. I know his year hasn't been that great. What are your thoughts coming into this game? We'll talk about the winner and so forth, but what are your early thoughts about it, TD?
No, I'll tell you, these games are interesting, and specifically in terms of the Texans game, you're talking about, I think, one of the more precarious opponents, right? Because we know the Texans coming into this year were a favorite. They had a loaded wide receiver core with Tank Dell and Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, in a second year of CJ Stroud, a guy that for most believed after what was an incredible rookie season that he was going to become one of the top quarterbacks in the game. And rightfully so. He had all the weapons to be able to do it. He had a very good defense under, D'Amico Ryans, who bolstered that group and has some nice pieces, right? So the objectively, you would assume that that team was going to be a stud cast of characters, and it just unfortunately fell off. CJ Stroud did not have the year that most people would have assumed. They had many injuries. Nico Collins was injured. Stephon Diggs is done for the year. Tank Dell again tore his knee. I mean, one of the most gruesome
Yeah,
injuries you'll
that
see.
was
And
pretty
who
brutal.
knows if he's even going to come back again. So you would have to think at this point, the Chargers should run away with this game. I think the Texans are as depleted and reeling as you could possibly be for a playoff team, and the Chargers seem to really be mounting. Harbaugh coming in, finally giving Justin Herbert what he's been looking for years as a quality head coach, a guy that doesn't make bonehead mistakes, like Staley used to do. You're seeing a complementary team. Now he just needs a few pieces, but really good stuff in Lad McConkey. Quentin Johnston seems to be kind of rounding into form, still has his hands issues, but they've got a really good defense. I think this team should take care of business. Obviously, the one time Justin Herbert was in the playoffs, it did not turn out well. So we're going to have to see if this ends up, flipping the script and Justin Herbert can change the narrative.
Yeah, that's great that you mentioned Justin Herbert because I was going to go there with him. I think it's a completely different Justin Herbert that we've seen in terms of mindset. I mean, when you bring in the Jim Harbaugh, I think one of the first things that he's going to initiate, on this team, they're going to be tough, hard nosed. They want to run the football, but there is a special relationship that he has with his quarterbacks. I mean, I'm thinking, you go back to Andrew Luck at Stanford. You go when he first got to Michigan, his quarterback was Jake Rudock, and all the way to JJ McCarthy. I mean, he's always had, this way with quarterbacks to kind of get them to calm down and play their best football. And Justin Herbert, I mean, the numbers don't say it, but the play on the field does. And when you look at the metrics and how he's improved this year, I think part of that is having a much better offensive line up front, having a running game that he's been able to rely on, despite not having maybe some of the household name receivers that he's had in the past. I like Justin Herbert in this game just because the mindset's different. I don't think that there's a lot of pressure. I think Jim Harbaugh is the CEO kind of coach where he takes that pressure and he knows how to deal with it. And he brings that championship pedigree. So I mean, if you talk about a perfect marriage, I mean, one of the offseason hires, I think this is it. So Justin Herbert coming in this game, not, he doesn't need to press too much. I think, this is a Texas team, albeit they're good on defense, but they can be had. So I really like the matchup with Justin Herbert and his defense. And then, you talk about the run game. They've had injuries at running back position, and I don't think they've really had to have a bell cow guy. So we'll see how they can kind of supplement their offense there. But man, I really like what I've seen from the Texans. I don't know necessarily, if they're going to blow this team out, but the Texans just haven't looked the part, the past 6 weeks.
Yeah, they've been falling apart left and right. It was a feel good story coming into this year. I think a lot of people really thought CJ Stroud was going to change, the trajectory of a lot of the AFC, right? Like you know that, obviously you've got Mahomes and the Chiefs and Allen and the Bills and Burrow and the Bengals, albeit they haven't really panned out either. You thought the Texans were going to be that next team. Maybe they could usurp with all that talent. Just didn't pan out, but that happens. The NFL is a fickle game.
Yeah, it's a fickle game. You know what we should do? I know our guest is waiting in the back. I think we can talk about the Steelers Ravens maybe after she leaves. I don't want to, I want her time is precious. So,
Certainly.
TD, I want to give you the opportunity to introduce our guest on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was very fortunate to be able to cover the NFL draft. I like to show my credential because I don't have a lot that
Flex, man.
yeah, I don't have a lot that I get to, kind of show off, but I was very, very proud to be able to cover the NFL draft this past year. And, I was very lucky that Rachel Vigil, who's joining us tonight, was sitting directly next to me. And so we got to chat back and forth. we tagged along with each other and Ian to walk around the premise, which was an absolute shit show. If we're being fair, the amount of people in Detroit was unbelievable. But if you look at it, the experience was great, and we were kind of going back and forth, and it was cool because Rachel and I really reacted in real time to some of these the Michael Penix trade,
Mhm.
or Bo Nix being drafted by Denver. So incredible valuable source here. She not only does the Broncos, but she does the Avalanche and she does the Nuggets. So she has every ounce. And you guys are Denver folks, man.
We're
Because
neighbors.
yeah, Sterling lives up in Colorado Springs, so he is one of your folk.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, I've also got my credential back here too, which is pretty fun. You could see it right there, I believe. So we love Denver folks, though, Colorado folks. So much fun. I'm stoked to be on here. I did not realize this was the first episode. So thank
Yeah.
you so much for making me a part of it. I'm so excited for the matchup on Sunday, as I'm sure both of you guys are. But Sterling, I have to ask you, you're a Colorado guy. Why are we a Buffalo fan?
Well, so I didn't always grow. I didn't grow up in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
So in '89 is when I picked all my teams really, and I lived in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and the Falcons were terrible. Like you did not want to root for the Falcons, and the Tennessee Titans. Well, they were in Houston at the time, and so I'm sitting there, I'm watching the Bills, and I think it was the Bengals or somebody like that, and man, I fell in love with Bruce Smith and Thurman Thomas and all those guys, and it was kind of one of those things I always tell people, like, it's the longest relationship that I've been in, and it's the most abusive relationship that I've been in.
I
you
feel
just kind of learn you just kind of learn to deal with it. But man, it feels really good to be a Buffalo Bill fan right now. So yeah, so I wear my colors proud out here in Colorado. But Denver Broncos fans, man, they're kind to me. They I mean, I root for the Broncos too when they're just not playing the Bills. I mean, because I want to see them succeed. But a rich franchise and you get to cover them. I mean, that's just super badass in and of itself.
It's been an absolute blast. Honestly, we've been so lucky for the past couple of years with the Nuggets and the Avalanche both winning championships. Now the Broncos being back in the playoffs. This team is like, or the city, I guess I should say, is
Yeah.
exploding essentially.
So Rachel, like, I mean, here, like, I have friends obviously that are diehard Broncos fans, and they've been texting me talking crazy all week. But I think you made a good point. Could you talk about what's the vibe right now heading to this game from a Broncos point of view in terms of like what does their future look like? I mean, we heard in the stadium, I even saw it, we want Buffalo, and I'm thinking, do y'all really want Buffalo, or y'all just happy to be in the playoffs? So can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I'm not gonna lie, I would rather have Buffalo than Baltimore, and I feel like a lot of fans do feel that way. So we were okay with getting Buffalo, but there's a lot of this mentality right now that no matter what happens in the game, everyone in Broncos country is
Mm.
going to be happy. They made it to the playoffs. You figured out who your franchise quarterback is going to be. It has been a battle since Super Bowl 50 with Peyton Manning. So they finally have that figured out. We're not talking about should the Broncos draft a quarterback in the
Mm.
draft this year. That question has been solved. You have a coach in Sean Payton who is making it work and showcasing that rookie QB in Bo Nix too. So while I don't think everybody is like, yay, sign me up for Josh Allen and everything that comes with him, I think it is a little bit of a we have made it, but also it's going to be one hell of a game. We got to talk about the offensive line, and then you got the defensive line on the Broncos side of things. The fact that we're seeing the edge put so much pressure on quarterbacks too with Jonathan Cooper and Nick Benito. There is so many opportunities for this to be just such a great matchup, and I can't wait for Sunday.
Oh, that's gonna be see, now you're getting me a little nervous mentioning those pass rushers now.
Mm.
It kind of feels like when Sean McDermott got here with Tyrod Taylor and when the Bills made the playoffs that first year, and we played the Jaguars. I mean, we were just happy to be there. Just happy to be there. So you guys are in a much different situation, but very similar. I mean, you guys have your franchise quarterback of the future. I mean, what can you can you tell us what the impact of Bo Nix has been like? Do you have any news about the culture? What's that like?
First of all, when the One Punter ownership group took over, everything drastically changed.
Mm.
And that is not trying to put any sort of shade on previous ownerships, but they have this money and they're willing to invest. When they wanted to make the change from Russell Wilson to go find a new quarterback, it wasn't like, well, there's this huge dead cap. We can't afford to do that. It was, you know what, we'll figure it out. And to have an ownership group really support your head coach in that sense, you could just tell that everything was changing. We've seen them replace the field down there at Empower Field and Mile High. They are building a different training facility. Like everything kind of changed with the culture when that new ownership group came in, and they want to win. They're, blood relations essentially, or family relations with the Cronkies who want the
Right.
exact same thing. So we're just seeing that relationship shine. But then you bring in a guy like Sean Payton and everything changes. He's that old school mentality, and you can just tell with everything he does that there is an emphasis on whatever the message is to that team that week, and the players reciprocate that. 10 out of 10. Can tell you pretty much every single message every single week, because every single guy you talk to in the locker room says something pretty freaking similar. So Sean is repeating these things nonstop. So Sean Payton is one thing, the ownership group is another, and then you have a rookie QB who just wants to win, right? I go back to the Bengals game, and he wanted to go for the 2 points. He wasn't shying away from that. He wants to do it. And I think that's why Broncos country in and in itself right now is sitting there saying, we're not happy with just getting into the playoffs. We want to go out there and beat Buffalo. We want to go take on Kansas City. There's this sense, because the rookie QB isn't just like, we made it, we're thrilled, I'm so happy I can be here. He is like, no, the job is not even close to done. We want a Lombardi. Well, I think that's a bit of a stretch for this team, because they've definitely had their ebbs and flows, their ups and downs throughout the year. I mean, how can you not, pump your chest for a guy a little bit who's like, yeah, let's absolutely go out there and get there. He just put out one of the greatest hype videos I've ever seen in my entire life. I've seen a lot of hype videos in my time. This one still gives me chills every single time I watch it. And I'm just telling you, it's on my Twitter after the show is done. You guys should go check it out. It's so good, but he's the reason I feel like so many Broncos country members are like, yeah, let's go into Buffalo and see what we can do.
See, that's huge because, having a quarterback like Bo Nix, I mean, he is a tone setter. He's a culture setter. I mean, you if you go back and
Absolutely.
you look at what he was able to do at Auburn, I mean, I think probably you should. His father's a coach. I mean, this is a Christian family. They really do pride themselves on doing things the right way. So like you don't have to worry about preparation with Bo Nix. But I think there is, and it's an underrated thing in sports, just the people aspect. And you got to have a leader of men. And for a locker room as grizzled as the Denver Broncos have, and a coach like Sean Payton to hand the keys to the Ferrari to Bo Nix. I mean, dude, like we felt that way with Josh Allen. It gives me chills talking about it. And I'm so excited for you guys that you get to experience that. Like, you're not, this is not a retread quarterback like the Broncos have brought in. Like, I'm not saying, Peyton Manning was a retread, but he was at the end of his career when he got here, and then taking a random swing at a quarterback, Brock Osweiler. I mean, we can go through all the names, right? But you guys finally, you did it the right way this time. You drafted a quarterback. You're going to groom him. You have the infrastructure in place, and now you get to see this kid grow. Like, I mean, how many quarterbacks? I was looking at the splits the other day. How many rookie quarterbacks he has over 40 attempts in like 9 games this season? A rookie quarterback. I mean, it's crazy, it's insane, but it's also good. So what I mean, like, what are the players saying about Bo Nix? And I don't want to turn this to a Bo Nix thing, but I just find him so fascinating and what they're able to do and what they've accomplished this season.
Dude, me too. So don't worry. I could talk about Bo Nix like all day, it feels like, because, and the players do too. That's the thing is, guys like Garrett Bowles who have been there for so long, they talk about how Bo Nix is the culture setter. He's that guy. He's the guy that is, making sure that everybody is staying on top of stuff. But he also just doesn't speak for whatever reason. He's very purposeful when he speaks. And he has mentioned that that's really important because he wants to learn from the older guys, from the veterans, the Garrett Bowles, the Cortland Suttons, who have been around this league for so long and have been around the Broncos for so long, that he wants to be very impactful when he does speak up. And I think you see that a lot. Guys like Marvin Mims have talked about his leadership abilities. Guys on defense have even talked about it. You're just seeing everything kind of build this perfect storm right now around Bo Nix. And, there's a lot of comparison, guys, with this matchup on Sunday. A lot of people are saying, oh, Bo Nix kind of looks like the young Josh Allen when he was first starting out. So it's interesting to see the comparisons start to flow.
So we'll get like 3 picks this coming weekend then.
Oh
right?
my God. Well, no,
Yeah,
the Broncos
right?
have to play a perfect game to stay within reach of this game on Sunday. So I'm hoping not. No picks for Bo.
All right, go ahead, TD.
So this matchup is intriguing. Obviously, you're talking. I think you can really parallel this very much into this is like when the Buffalo Bills were kind of starting their early ascension. And just like you mentioned with Josh Allen, this is the kind of the infancy stage, and it's great. And I'm happy for you guys because the Broncos are one of those teams I've always kind of respected. Their fans are really good people. You don't really, personally, I love Denver, obviously, but I think it's a good group. I like Sean Payton. I love Patrick Surtain. We love what Nick Benito's doing. Like, there's just so many parts and pieces. Marvin Mims seems to just has ascended after kind of being forgotten. Cortland Sutton is finding his way. Like, there's just so many guys that have, I don't want to say it through the fire and ashes have kind of risen, but it has. You've got very similar to like the Buffalo Bills, like a bunch of castaways that have now found their way to be successful. So when you look at this matchup, Rachel, I guess what's going into it? What's the overarching feel for Broncos fans right now? I know the excitement, like we mentioned before, about wanting to play Buffalo, but what's the feel going into a game against a perennial playoff powerhouse like the Buffalo Bills?
I think it's kind of split right now. It's a
Mm.
lot of people who are like, oh, they're going to get smashed. It's going to be like a 38-14 game. It could be ugly. And then there's a lot of people that are like, no, I actually think this team can keep it close. And, everyone was so worried about Joe Burrow going into the playoffs. Well, they went back and forth with Joe Burrow,
Yeah.
a guy like that. So it's not like they're getting slaughtered by teams that are, talked about in that way. The one that
Right.
obviously like pops out is the Baltimore Ravens game where that was in fact a really bad game. But you have to realize the Broncos defense did show up in that game. You're seeing them with tackles or with sacks from anywhere from like 3 to 6 in a game. And in that game, they only had one. You're seeing them, put pressure on the quarterback multiple times, going after them multiple times, which is what we're hoping to see for Broncos country this weekend to really get Josh Allen moving on his feet to see what can happen. But there's just this overarching sense of like they can compete with the best of them, but can they do it for the entire time? And we've seen the offense some days show up and some days they don't. We've seen the defense have their days and sometimes they show up and sometimes they don't. So can it be the perfect storm? Plus, can Sean Payton call a perfect game? I don't know how many times I've been in the post game press conference and Sean Payton has said, I need to be better. We need to go look at the tape and I need to be better. There's been numerous times where everyone in Broncos country is like, Sean, what are you doing? What's going on right now? And he has to have a perfect game too. So not only does everybody else on that field have to really go out there and not just give it 100%, but really excel, kind of like they did last year in Buffalo. But Sean Payton has to be better as well. And if they can, I think it can be one heck of a game going into the fourth quarter. But a lot of things have to go the Broncos' way for that to happen.
Yeah, I think so too. I think there is definitely, I would say, and I was telling my wife earlier today, I think there's two very different scripts that can happen. I think there's going to be a close game, and I don't mean to take a low hanging fruit, but realistically, there's going to be a close game where the Broncos are competitive, or the alternative, which we've seen in the past, where Buffalo just kind of runs roughshod over a team. And so I guess my question is you've got Sean McDermott, who has had his blunders, has had his moments, but against rookie quarterbacks has done an incredible job of finding ways to not only confuse but keep them really kind of aggravated. So in a game where Bo Nix, like Sterling said, has had countless games with 40 passes or more. If it gets to the point where Sean McDermott is having his way, how do you see, or what do you see is the path to victory for the Broncos if Bo Nix is not the one who's going to be able to get them there?
Well, what's so funny is Sean is going to showcase Bo next. We see him in shotgun. I don't know how many times a game, just because he wants to showcase him. But Audric Estime, running back for the Denver Broncos, in the locker room yesterday, actually said, "This is the run and game type football. Like this is what it's going to be, and it's going to be cold, and it's going to be loud, and this is when they're really going to have to use the run game." And it made me think, I'm like, okay, so is that part of the game plan maybe a little bit more than we've seen? They've had a lot more balanced offense the past few weeks, having the run game be involved more. But let's be real, the Broncos don't have great running backs. We're having Bo Nix be the third leading rusher on this team. That's not exactly what you want to see, especially when you are rotating three different running backs in the mix. But if Bo's not the one throwing it, to be completely honest with you, he uses his feet insanely well. And I think that he might actually just be kind of one of the X factors on the fact of you're going to see him move with his feet to be able to do whatever it takes to get that first down. I remember at the beginning of the season, I sat there and I said, Bo, just run out of bounds. Don't try and extend for the extra 2 yards that you're trying to do because you're going to get knocked up and you're going to get hit. And he would do whatever it took. I mean, we all saw the highlight play, right? With him in the end zone, Cortland Sutton's throwing to him, and he's willing to go up to be able to get the touchdown catch. It was insane. But I do think we're going to see a pretty run heavy offense, so maybe a little bit more depending on how the weather is going to be out there. But I think you're going to see Bo Nix using his legs maybe a little bit more than some of the running backs, just on the scale of how it should be. Don't get me wrong, you'll still get most of the yards from the running backs, but in the grand scheme of things, I think Bo's going to use his legs a bit too.
Well, you make an interesting point because the Bills, in terms of run defense, I think this is the area, attack the weakness, right? And I think this is an area where the Bills have shown to be pretty weak. I mean, in terms of a pass rush standpoint, look, you mean these guys most of the time aren't very disciplined in their rush lane. So there are going to be opportunities for Bo Nix to kind of get out and make plays with his legs. Now, will there be an adjustment from the Bill standpoint? We don't know. But that's really I love that you said that, it's gonna be. I hope Sean McDermott's watching this podcast and he just heard that they're gonna be running the ball this weekend. So and if he is, yeah, you could thank us later. But
I hope he's watching in general because that would just be the coolest thing to
right,
hear.
that would be so dope. But
And if there's anything I know about NFL teams, they watch everything. Any sort of post game press conference, any sort of locker room sound, they're always watching it, which is why it can be so hard to get sound out of some of those guys. I'm like, give me something interesting. But they're like, everybody's listening. Okay, fair, fair.
So yeah, I just think that's going to be a point of emphasis for the Bills. I mean, the run defense has not been great. Now, if you want to look at EPA per run and pass and in terms of defensively, the numbers will tell you one thing. They'll tell the Bills are they're good, right? But man, when you watch the film and it's the it's the little things that's really hurting this team defensively, and I think it starts up front with Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones, and they just have not, in my opinion, they have not been the stalwarts that we were looking forward to them being coming into this season. So, from a wide receiver standpoint, you guys have Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims. Can you tell us why they don't use Marvin Mims more? Because he seems like he's just a big play machine waiting to happen each and every week.
Listen, I have a saying called Mims is him because recently in the second half of the season, he has absolutely exploded. He's been so fun to watch. But you have to realize in training camp and at the beginning of the season, Mims was not him. He was struggling. I don't know if it was a mental game, but it feels like the second half, he's really come alive. He's got the playbook in his hands and he says, all right, I can do it. Devon Vele is another guy who it feels like week after week we're talking about him. He dealt with injuries earlier on in the season. When he came back, it was like automatic. He's back. We're seeing them be really productive with him. Cortland Sutton has continued to be that guy. That's my biggest fear this week is Sean Payton likes to play mind games a lot. It's one of those things you feel like he's always trying to outthink every other coach. And I'm scared they're going to go away from Cortland Sutton instead of sticking to what has worked for them, right? Because everybody's going to be paying attention. What's Cortland Sutton going to be doing? It's like, no. You just have to keep that game plan. Like, let's not try to outsmart anybody here. Let's go with what's working and playing the Broncos brand of football. And if so, then I think we can have a game.
That's a good point. TD, you have any remarks on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing about the Buffalo Bills in terms of the running game, it's tough because you have to give something, right? Like in football, you're not going to just be able to stop the pass, the run. You're not going to be perfect. And a lot of times Sean McDermott is very willing, and he did it a lot against the Dolphins too, where he's willing to give you between the 20s. The pass game against the Jets, Aaron Rodgers had really inflated stats, but at the end of the day, the stat sheet was just stats. It was no points. I mean, they did nothing. They didn't cash in on any of those opportunities. And I think that's what Sean McDermott really feels. And he's probably going to do that against Bo Nix. He's going to say, listen, go ahead. You want to run the ball, you matriculate down the field, that's fine. But I'm going to expect you to be perfect. And if you're not perfect, the Buffalo Bills, who are second in the NFL in takeaways, are going to try to cash in on those opportunities. So I think Sean McDermott is willing to give you something. He's not going to give you the pass.
Yeah.
That's just not going to happen. He always wants everything in front of him. He plays very smart, sound defensive, formations. He plays a lot between nickel and dime. He really tries to focus on keeping the teams honest. And so he's willing to give you the run because you know what? Go ahead. You're going to limit your possessions. And with the possessions you do have, you better be perfect because otherwise, on the other side of the ball, we have 17 who more than likely is going to cash in on 3 points an average. And that's the one thing that we got to talk about is Josh Allen right now is the third team in NFL history to average 3 points per drive, something that is just an absurd stat, truly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to be the dictating factor for both Sean Payton, for Sean McDermott, and how this game plays. And so I guess I kind of want to segue into this question for you, Rachel, is everybody knows that Josh Allen won on an MVP trajectory. I know that that's a whole different conversation, but you know, Josh Allen is having a year that is both efficient but statistically very, very, very strong. Going into this game, what what are you as the Broncos doing to try to prevent Josh Allen from having a day where you've seen where it was against the Detroit Lions or against the Rams where putting up 40 plus points. I don't think Bo Nix wants to get into a shooting match with Josh Allen. What do you guys do to temper that?
Yeah, and this has to be my last question for you guys. Just unfortunately, I have to make a reservation. We're celebrating my birthday tonight. It's actually
Hey,
on
happy
Sunday, which is
birthday.
exciting.
Hey, my birthday
And
was 2 days
hopefully,
ago, so happy birthday.
oh, thank you. No, I appreciate it. But you're right. I don't think anybody wants to get into a back and forth battle with Bo Nix or Josh Allen. Like you just don't want to see that if you're a part of Broncos country. But to be honest, Broncos country is going to be mad at me when I say this. You're just hoping that Josh Allen makes mistakes. You're hoping that his head's not entirely in the game and he's kind of overthinking it, already looking on to the Chiefs. I'm hoping he goes after Patrick Surtain. I am a full believer that if you are the best, go out there and prove you're the best. Don't have people avoid you at all times. I hate that mentality. Throw at Patrick Surtain. I want to see what he's able to do. I don't know who they're going to put him on. I know Amari Cooper is back this week, which is going to be interesting. So, usually there's that number one guy. Patrick Surtain will usually follow 85, 90% of the time, but there's nobody really like that for the Bills. So I'm kind of curious what Vance Joseph's going to do with Patrick Surtain. But one way or another, I think you're kind of just hoping that they'll be a more little loosey-goosey, if that's the term I want to use when it comes to Josh Allen. But I'm hoping that he does target Patrick Surtain. He's been a stud this year, but he also doesn't see that many balls thrown at him for good reasoning. He's also very good with, even if they do allow a catch, he gets that guy right out on the sideline immediately. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm really curious to see what the defensive game plan is going to be going up against Josh Allen because, whew, is it going to be a tough matchup regardless?
Well, it's good to have you on the show.
Thank
You
you so
so
much.
much. We really
Yeah,
appreciate it. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you and your work?
Yeah, definitely check me out. You can find me on YouTube. Just search my name, Rachel Vigil. You can also find me on Twitter, which is at Rachel or at Hey Rachel Vigil. All sorts of different stuff. I do behind the scenes blogs for game days as well. So there's plenty of good content over there. You'll see it all. You'll see literally like all aspects of my life on my Twitter as well. So I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you to everybody too for hanging out with us. And yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And I hope we're talking on Sunday and it's a back and forth game regardless of the outcome.
Hey, well, thank you for joining us, man. You're so
Absolutely.
dope, and you're gonna have to come back on the show sometime to talk off season or whatever. So we'll hit you up.
Sounds good. Have a good one, guys. Thank you.
All right,
Thanks, Rachel.
man. See, that's dope. See, like that's the kind of back and forth the dialogue that you want from
Mhm.
a reporter from the other team. Like it's just, man, they how can you not like the Broncos? Like for real, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, she's that's I mean that when I was thinking about who we could bring on, there's a bunch of different names, but I'll tell you, meeting Rachel in person, that is exactly who she was. You are getting the exact same person, whether it was on the camera or not. Really cool to hang out with, really honest, and very I think a very knowledgeable source to give
Yeah.
you real Broncos information, not sugar coated, not
Hmm.
fandom, not being trying to push a narrative. So definitely appreciate everything she had going there.
All right, man. Let's cut the crap. Let's cut the crap because listen, dog, I'm nervous. I'm nervous. Me and Rob were talking the other day. It's not the Broncos necessarily. It's the
Mhm.
playoffs. It's the playoffs, man. It's all the things that we've experienced over this McDermott tenure in the playoffs, the postseason blunders, the missed opportunities, the injuries, the lack of availability for some players. All that stuff has crept in this week, man. We spend all this time going through the conundrums of the regular season, right? And it's we're so spoiled now. The regular season is really not that fun anymore because we expect to win, you know.
Right.
But it's playoff time, baby. Like, what are you what are your thoughts, man? Like, how you feeling? Are you nervous? What?
So I didn't just choose to drink Josh Pinot for no good reason. I am a true through and through believer of JA17. I know it's not always easy and it isn't always pretty, but what I can tell you is this is one Bills team that I've believed in more than I think any Bills team, maybe 2020, but I still didn't think that was real. This is I think the most fully balanced Buffalo Bills team that we've had to date.
Mhm.
There are some hiccups, there are some things to be focused on, but the reality is the whole picture is really good. You've got Josh Allen playing smart, efficient, really mature football, which I think is something that we've desired for the entirety of his career so far. He's finally ascending beyond just being an elite quarterback, but a smart elite quarterback, which is truly an asset to not only the team, but to the whole picture that you're looking at in terms of getting to where you need to be. You've got an offense that has so many different parts and pieces. And I think it's truly one that's totally diverse, from guys that can run vertical and 9 routes like Amari Cooper and Keon Coleman,
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
slot receivers like Khalil Shakir, to role players like Ty Johnson and Mac Hollins and Curtis Samuel, to really incredible tight ends in Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid, Quentin Morris every once in a while with that really touchdown that he likes to put in. And then a running back group. I mentioned Ty Johnson, but Ray Davis and James Cook, who has absolutely exploded to being one of the best running backs in the game. And then you got Josh Allen, an offense that truly, I think, not only has set records, but is now transcending just historical Buffalo Bills players. I mean, they are
Mhm.
becoming a group that you could sit there and say you can rival with almost any Buffalo Bills offense in history, truly.
Yeah.
And then on the defensive side of the ball, you've got guys that are healthy. For the first time in the entire McDermott Bean era, the only three guys on the practice or on the injured reserve is Bale Inspector, Travis Clayton, and Shane Buechele. Three non-factor players. That's huge for the Buffalo Bills, a team that has been snake bitten heading into the playoffs every year. They finally have a roster of health. Going into today, the injury report listed Jamarcus Ingram was out because of a personal matter that he was dealing with. And then Brandon Condrington is back, and he was unavailable. Now
Right.
he's limited. That's it. That's the only injured players. The Bills are in the best position they've been thus far heading into the postseason, and their defense is finally healthy. We talked about Ravens, and that's why I kind of want to, we'll talk about the Ravens in a
Yeah.
second with the Steelers, but the Bills finally have all their parts and pieces. They've got Matt Milano, they've got Terrell Bernard, they've got Taron Johnson. Their secondary still has Rasul Douglas and Christian Benford. They're getting their safeties back. Like, there's just so much to be positive about. And that's why when I look at this game, I know they're a really good team in the Denver Broncos,
Right.
but I think they're ahead of schedule right now. And that's fine. And I'm happy for them. I'm happy for Rachel and all those guys. It's a lot easier to cover a good team than it is to cover a bad team. We know that. But when you look at this right now, I think the Bills are more mature. I think they're seasoned. They've been there. They've weathered the storm. And something that Rasul Douglas mentioned is, in previous years, specifically last year, they had run out of steam. We saw that the year
Yeah,
prior
I
when they
saw
got
that.
to right. But the year prior when they got to the Bengals, they had run out of steam. This team doesn't even look like it's hit its peak yet. And I think that tells you where they're going. So no, like, am I nervous because it's a playoffs? Yeah, I got the jitters because I'm excited. I'm ready
Yeah.
for that football, that different football. But I'm very, very, very optimistic about a Buffalo Bills team that I think is, I honestly, if there was a year to win the Super Bowl, I think that's this year.
Yeah, man. It's real easy to fall into that mindset given what we've witnessed this regular season, right? But we
Truly.
know the playoffs bring its own different kind of demons and pressure. Um, I do think though that this team is the most prepared for a deep playoff run this year. Um,
Certainly.
I mean, Josh Allen has been playing out of his mind. I mean, statistically, I mean, what his second best season statistically, but
Yep.
from an efficiency standpoint, it's his best season overall. Um, I just think that he's going to unleash the beast. You're talking, and we've seen this. These performances from Josh Allen, I think he's going to come in. He will be running the ball. He will be throwing the ball. You know, making the right smart decision with the football. And I think when you do that, as much as we talk about the defense letting this team down in the playoffs, I think that level of efficiency and not having to worry about some of the things that are unnecessary, like how many targets I'm gonna give Stephon Diggs and making sure different guys hit their numbers and so forth.
Or
You
the
got
bad drops that happen in playoff games
bad
like last
drops.
year.
Right. And we were talking about this. We're saying how many, Trent Sherfield, like Trent Sherfield being the fourth wide receiver, or our fourth wide receiver now is Keon Coleman or Matt
Mm.
Collins. Like that's a massive upgrade in that area, right? So he has, I think, although you may not see the stars on paper, but he has the infrastructure to make a run in this playoffs. And so, yes, I'm nervous, but for this Sunday, I'm telling you this right now. I don't care what the score is. I don't care if the Bills win by 3. I just need them to just get this game over with because I feel like the playoffs is going to start really next week, right? I don't know if you feel that way, but it could be the Baltimore Ravens, which we should just talk about right now. Like
Yeah.
Baltimore and the Steelers. I mean, this Russell Wilson has been a shell of himself. I mean, he has looked like he's come back to earth, right? And I really do think, even though it's a division game, I really don't have much hope in the Steelers to come out in this to get a W. Like they give me no hope whatsoever they can knock this team off. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this game coming up?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. The really the subpar play of George Pickens, his attitude,
Yeah,
both of those things have really I mean, without having a quality wide receiver, obviously, Roman Wilson is likely not going to play. There's just the lack of using Jalen Warren over Najee Harris, which I think is just bonehead play after bonehead play. It's tough. Like as good as Pittsburgh's defense is,
yeah,
any good defense can only last so long before that bend don't break kind of just until the levy kind of snaps, right? Like you can only hold for excuse me, hold for so long. And I like the Steelers, and I doubt that Mike Tomlin, like losing 5 straight just seems so crazy to me because that just
right.
is so anti-Steelers esque. But I just don't know. I guess here's the thing. I don't know if they can do it. But then there's the flip side. Lamar Jackson is a terrible playoff quarterback. Like, if we're being fair, his stats are really abysmal.
Yeah,
He has a poor record. He doesn't do well. He turns the ball over, makes poor reads. The only difference is now he has Derrick Henry. So, what is that going to look like? And on top of that, he's not going to have Zay Flowers, his number one wide receiver. So, you're going to have to rely on Rashad Bateman, Nelson Aguilar, maybe Devontae Walker, who has brick hands, and then Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. So there's a lot that has to go into this game. And
yeah,
like it looks like it's an easy, like the Ravens should win this, but it's a division matchup. The weather's going to be crappy. You don't know what's going to happen. Lamar Jackson has a propensity of not really being great. The winds are going to be like 25, 30 mile an hour gusts, which could play a role into it. So, like, I in my heart of hearts, I'm sitting there saying the Ravens should win. But on the flip side, I'm also sitting there saying maybe the Steelers just pull off one of those games where they just grit it out. I mean, we saw what happened when the Ravens and the Bills played, where it wasn't a high scoring game, but Taron Johnson picked off Lamar Jackson in the end zone. And it was just a really ugly game that they just kind of snuck out with.
yeah. Look, man, I think going into this game, I think the Steelers, they do play a lot of single high safety. And if I'm not mistaken, Lamar Jackson's been great against single high. So, I think, what that is middle of the field closed, right? So now that you say Zay Flowers, we saw him get injured last week. It was in a pure bonehead. Just I don't even think he should have been on the field anyways. But
Absolutely.
um, it does make me wonder, where is Lamar going to go with the football? We know
Right.
Lamar likes, those seam routes and busting the seams with these tight ends and so forth. It does make me wonder though, what's going to be the play here? Or is it going to be Derrick Henry? I mean, that's probably the more that makes more sense, right? But you kind of need to see, if you're a Ravens fan, you need to see um, Lamar come out and just grab the bull by its horns and just calm the storm, right? You're dealing with a team that this will be the third time that they've seen you, and it just we need to see Lamar. I need to see Lamar take that next step. We've seen it. I mean, his PFF rating is a 94. He's the highest rated quarterback this season. He's having his best season, right? But like you mentioned, when it comes to the playoffs, he often doesn't meet the mark.
Right.
And so what do you think is going to take for Lamar? Like, what if you're his head coach or offensive coordinator, right? What are you saying to Lamar right now?
I think you got to talk to him about just do what you've done. Do what has made you successful.
Mm,
Because, a lot of times in these moments, players try to put on that Superman cape. That's what got Josh Allen into trouble for many years,
yep.
is that sugar high Josh Allen where he just did too much and really just unnecessarily so. Lamar Jackson has been unbelievable this year. And
Yeah.
whether he wins or Josh wins the MVP, both are very, 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 you know, they're right for it, right? Like they deserve the honor. And so if I'm Harbaugh, you look him in the eye and say, listen, don't get cute. Don't go over the top and don't do things that are just unnecessary for this game. Do what has made you who you are,
Yeah.
right? That's all it is. Because realistically, I think Lamar Jackson has the keys to he could run it all the way to the Super Bowl and win. Like truly,
Absolutely.
that Ravens
Absolutely.
team is very, very talented. The defense is playing well right now, even though it didn't start off hot. The running game, I mean, Derrick Henry has 1,900 yards rushing on the season. Lamar Jackson over 4,000 yards passing. Like they've got all the pieces necessary to win the game. It just comes down to Lamar's got to win in the
Yeah.
biggest moments. And it's very much like Josh, right? Like you would say the same thing to Josh that you'd say to Lamar. Just do what got you here.
Yep.
And I think the other thing is that would be important is take what's there. Take what they're going to give you, right? Like don't force the issue. Don't make throws that are unnecessary. Live to see another down. Throw it away if you have to. If it takes 3 yards and slide, do that. Because
Yeah.
so much of what football is not making stupid mistakes and not losing possessions, right? Like that was the big thing I was saying with Rachel about Bo Nix. You don't want to give Josh Allen any more possessions than he's going to have already, right?
Right.
Like the more possessions you give, the more chances are Josh Allen is going to win the game. Period. And it's unfortunate, but that's just the reality. When it comes to Lamar, you don't want to give Mike Tomlin, who is a seasoned, smart, very, very, very crafty coach, more opportunities to win. So I think if Lamar does that, I think they should be fine. But it just comes down to can Lamar finish the job when it's presented?
All right. So give me a score for this game before we move on to some more Bill stuff.
I think it's going to be something like 17-14. I think it's going to be
Oh.
close. I don't think it's going to be a high scoring game. I think it's going to, first off, I think it's going to be a tale of Najee Harris, Jalen Warren versus Derrick Henry.
Hmm.
I think Lamar Jackson, I think his stat line is going to be something like 9 for 17 for like a buck 20, a touch, a touch,
Golly.
a touchdown and an interception.
Man.
I don't think it's gonna be a pretty game. I think it's gonna be an ugly, gutted out division matchup.
Well, I hope you're right. I mean, it'd be nice if the Ravens will lose. I mean, we'll see how that game pans out. Okay, so before we get out of here, I got a question for you.
Certainly.
X factor. I mean, every season we see in the playoffs, we see a unsung hero for a team, right? Every team that makes a run, they have it, right?
Mhm.
One that comes to mind is Nick Bolton for the Chiefs. I mean,
Yeah.
phenomenal, right? You saw him put his big boy pants on in the playoffs, and it's like it's go time. I mean, we know the names, we know Josh Allen's gonna perform, right? Um, but there's always a guy. Like, so we're anticipating the Bills to make a run for the Super Bowl. We
Right.
we, we expect them to represent the AFC. If there's a guy that you can handpick to be the X factor for this team, someone that the fans can look forward to dominating or just doing their part, very well, who would that be for you?
It's James Cook. James
Ooh.
Cook. James Cook has been unbelievable. His vision is, I mean, he is truly, truly, truly maturing in front of our eyes into a top five, top three running back. I mean, just a guy that can take, I mean, house call it left and right,
Hmm.
has the ability to have really solid contact balance. I mean, he averaged 5 yards per carry. And in pro football, postseason football, it's about two things. It's about running the ball and playing stout defense.
Yeah.
And you need James Cook to be that X factor where he can dictate the game, dictate the line of scrimmage. And with a Buffalo Bills offensive line who has been likely the best since early 90s
Sure.
with Fina and Kent Hull and them,
Hmm.
this is a time where you need to unleash a run game and take some of the pressure off Josh. Because the biggest part about the Bills that has been their downfall is everything falls on Josh's back. If you can have a run game finally be the reason the Bills are that good and not that Josh Allen feels like he has to throw them on his back, I think you're going to see a better Josh Allen in the postseason. And the other guy I'm going to say is Keon Coleman. I think Keon Coleman had a bad game against the New England Patriots,
Okay. Okay.
albeit with some bad thrown balls. You know that stuff just sits with wide receivers, no matter who throws the ball. Dropping bad passes, a guy that is known for going up and plucking it out of the sky. I think Keon Coleman's going to have a big time role and have some big catches and big moments.
I love that. I'm gonna go Khalil Shakir. I think
Mm,
one of the common denominators when you look at um, a Bills run in the playoffs, it starts with wide receiver, right? We saw Stephon Diggs have some really great moments. Um, we've seen Dawson Knox with some massive plays, right? Like who Josh throwing the ball to. So you got James Cook and you mentioned our rookie wide receiver. I think it's Khalil Shakir. He is a star in the making,
certainly.
and I think Josh is he's not going to press the ball down the field that much, I don't think. But I do think he's going to be extremely efficient. And what's the best friend, not just from a tight end standpoint, but it's a slot receiver. And so I'm looking for how do they utilize Khalil Shakir? And then on the defensive side, I got to go Terrell Bernard.
Mm,
What the throws that he takes off the map I think is impressive, and his instincts, and pass coverage, and his ability to make plays on the ball. You know, it was nice to see in that Jets game how him and Milano you started to see that synergy and them working together very well again. So you start to see that chemistry. So I'm gonna go Khalil Shakir and Terrell Bernard, man.
love it. I think
Yeah,
those are two great answers. I think Khalil Shakir is proving not only to the Buffalo Bills fans, but to the NFL that he isn't just another guy. He is really making his name as one of the best receivers in the game, both as a yards after the catch recipient, but also just a guy that is an impact player.
yeah,
And Terrell Bernard, man, what from a guy that people were questioning, could he be the guy? Didn't play any time in preseason a couple years ago to now being one of the league's best middle linebackers. His impact is, I mean, i- it's unquestioned. He is so important to this defense. And now having him and Matt Milano, who seems to be really kind of coming back to his own, who's triggering when necessary, he's hitting the hole proper. He's looking more and more like that old Matt
yeah.
Milano. And as this progresses, if you have those two back together and they're close to what they were, man, look out. That is a defense that I wouldn't want to mess with.
Dog, it's gonna be fun, man. Sunday is
Certainly.
going to be this whole playoff run is gonna be great. You know what the cool thing is? I'll just share this. When the Bills make it to the AFC Championship, I'll be watching it from a ship in an undisclosed
Ooh,
location like the Bahamas. So
nice.
I'm looking forward to that, man. Uh 30 seconds. Okay? 30 seconds here. If you are talking to the panel, the voting panel for MVP, make a case for Josh Allen real quick.
Josh Allen is taking a team that shouldn't have been here, is here, and he's doing it at the most efficient manner while averaging 3 points per
Hmm.
game, breaking records, and he's doing it against all odds and not having a 1,900-yard runner in his backfield. That alone should tell you that he is the guy He is doing everything you wanted, and on top of that, he has his lowest turnovers to date.
Hey, I love that. I love that. Well, dude, guess what? We're out of time. So, Ian, you're gonna have to
Hmm.
do your thing here. But I want to say thank you to everyone who's tuned in, man. And if you
Absolutely.
haven't already, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe to this show, Buffalo Media Network on YouTube. We're gonna be having so many things for you guys that's gonna be coming up, and we'll let you know as we start unveiling some of those things. Again, we're working through all the kinks and all the stuff. But a lot of work has gone into this, and we're going to be giving you so much content. We got the offseason coming up after the Bills win the Super Bowl. We're going to be talking NFL draft, roster construction, you name it. We're going to be talking about it. We're going to have different shows, right? We're going to have, different nights. I mean, it's going, we got a squad coming, and we're just excited to be here. So make sure you guys stay locked and loaded to the Charge podcast, man. And with that being said, Ian, cue the music. We out of here. Go Bills.
Go Bills.